internet that has everyone covered. Can your internet do that?
Hello everyone and welcome to Eagles Gameday Central presented by Xfinity. Today we're coming to you on location from Xfinity Live right outside Lincoln Financial Field, where in a few short hours the Eagles will take on the defending Super Bowl champion Tampa Bay Buccaneers. My name is EJ Smith. I cover the Eagles for the Philadelphia Inquirer, and I'm very excited to be joined by Inquirer columnist David Murphy. What's going on, Dave?
I'm excited to be joined by you, buddy.
How excited are you?
I am very excited because we have a big football game here tonight at Lincoln Financial Field. The Eagles, the Bucs. We're here at Xfinity Live, as we will be, I believe, all season.
I think so.
If not, we will be in the vicinity, broadcasting, setting up the games. It's a little weird this week because we've got a Thursday night game as our kickoff special, but Sunday mornings we'll see you here and log on to what's the address?
It's Inquirer.com/Gameday Central.
Okay, and I think we should maybe get into it and talk some football, right?
Yeah. Well, first off, I want to complain a little bit.
Okay.
You know, these players, man, they get a couple of days off. They get the low impact days. They get a little bit of a rest. I don't get days off on these short weeks, man. I got work to do.
Bro, my entire life is low impact, so I can't really complain. If this is the worst thing that I'm asked to do, I will be happy.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of the trade-off.
We're not digging ditches out here.
Yeah, and I'm not getting pummeled by offensive linemen or
we
linebackers.
Can fix that.
As long as I'm doing my job the right way, hopefully I don't have to worry about that.
So what do you think tonight?
So I think there's a couple of big questions that we should touch on to start. Probably primarily the biggest one I think would be the Eagles defense matching up against a really good Tampa Bay offense. Tom Brady. They've got Mike Evans. You might have heard of him, yeah. He's been throwing touchdown passes since I was in diapers, and I might be dating myself a little bit there. But yeah, so I would say Tom Brady, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Antonio Brown, Scotty Miller. You've got a lot of guys. They don't have Rob Gronkowski for this game, but I want to see how you feel about this matchup.
Well, I would feel a lot better if Tom Brady's hand was amputated instead of just wrapped. It looks like he's going to be all right to play if you're the reporter, but
I can give you a little bit of a nuts and bolts update. He was a full participant in practice on Wednesday after being limited all week and wrapping his hand, after the game.
Well, that's not good news for the Eagles because Tom Brady is a very good quarterback, and I'm not sure that we're going to see a repeat of last week where Sam Darnold really kind of just threw the game away for the Panthers down in the closing minutes. Tom Brady is not apt to do that, and he's got three really good wide receivers that the Eagles are going to struggle to keep pace with. Darius Slay is only one man, last I checked, and I'm not sure he's going to be able to cover Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, and Antonio Brown at the same time.
He might be trying to work on some clones. He's a lot of kids. Yeah.
I'll say this: he's a confident dude. He might think that he can.
Yeah. This has been a trend with the Eagles defense so far this year. When they play against middling quarterbacks, middle of the pack guys like Sam Darnold, I'd say Jimmy Garoppolo kind of falls in that, and even Matt Ryan. I think those guys are sort of mid-tier guys. The defense has looked good against those guys, but against the elite quarterbacks and the elite offenses, that's where they've really struggled. They gave up 40-plus points to Dak Prescott and the Cowboys, 40-plus points to the Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes. Now listen, a lot of defenses struggle against those guys, but we have seen, the vanilla looks, zone coverage, heavy defensive looks that the Eagles use. Good quarterbacks can kind of take advantage of that. So I think it's going to be a really big point this game, whether or not the Eagles can make enough plays to keep themselves in the game.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously the big equalizer, and we saw this in the Super Bowl against Tom Brady the last time. I think it was the last time
they played in the preseason once before, but they haven't played a regular season game.
The pass rush, Javon Hargrave has just been a complete beast this season. Fletcher Cox, obviously, he hasn't gone anywhere either. I think that could be the one equalizer. They're going to need to get pressure on the quarterback. Otherwise, they're going to need to score a lot of points.
Yeah. Just one quick thing about Brady I want to add is, this is the old trope, but it's true. I mean, he's seen every coverage 1,000 times. You're not going to trick him. He's going to know where to go with the ball. He's going to be precise. So I agree with you. The pressure is going to be a big part of it because the way you can get him off his game a little bit is if he can't move through the pocket the way that he's accustomed to doing it.
Yeah, I mean, you got to make it. It's been the book on Brady for the last 10 years since he was, 40? You got to make him move his feet. And if you make him move his feet, specifically come at his feet straight on, we saw that in the Super Bowl. It's why Fletcher Cox has been such a valuable member of this defense for 10, 15 years now. You got to get at his feet and make him uncomfortable and not let him set up. And more than anything, that's where the Bucs have succeeded over the last the last year and whatever a quarter is keeping defenders off of Brady, because he has struggled when they've given up pressure.
But even in that Super Bowl, when they got pressure on him, they still had to score 41 points. So I want to ask you, the next topic we kind of want to touch on here is Jalen Hurts, the Eagles offense. I think they were the unit that came out of Carolina looking the worst of the three. They only put up 21 points, and one of those scores was set up by a blocked punt that set them up on the 27. This offense has looked up and down. I think Jalen Hurts has been uneven so far. And I think this might be a game where, if it does become a shootout, there are questions on whether or not Jalen Hurts can keep up with, an explosive Tampa Bay offense. What do you think about that?
I think that you're not going to be able to dink and dunk your way to a victory against Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You're not going to be able to run these bubble screens. You're not going to be able to run these swing passes. At some point, Jalen Hurts is going to need to attack a defense from within and get those 10, 15-yard seam patterns and really attack that area of the defense where we see the Aaron Rodgerses, even Carson Wentz's. There's a reason why arm strength plays in the NFL, and at some point you need to get chunks of yards and you need to get it into the teeth of the defense. That being said, we have seen the Eagles make some big plays this year, and the Bucs have at times been susceptible to the big play. I think 25 passes or 25 plays of 20 or more yards ranked. It's fourth most, I think, in the NFL, tied for fourth most in the NFL. We saw it against the Rams in week 2, their one loss. Matthew Stafford, I think, had 6 throws of 20-plus yards, 2 big bombs to Deshaun Watson. Quez Watkins is at a 40-plus yarder, I think, at 3 out of 5 games. That's one area. The big play is one area they're going to need to have going for them. But with Hurts, it's about getting those 8, 10, 12, 15-yard passes that can kind of keep the sticks moving, and you're not constantly worrying about perfectly executing a bubble screen all the time. Yeah,
the explosive plays is a big coaching point for the Eagles this year. That's been one of the primary things. They say they look for explosive plays after the game to make sure that, that's one of the determining factors on how well they played. And with Hurts, I think we still haven't seen him really throw the ball in anticipation. Let's see if I can get that one out 10 times fast.
I'm glad you had to say it.
We haven't seen him, throw guys open yet. We haven't really seen him throw to guys who are covered, who are about to uncover. I think that's going to be a big part of his development as a quarterback. You're right. We can kind of talk about Nick Sirianni here a little bit. Against the Panthers, we saw a lot of screens, a lot of underneath pass, a lot of RPOs. That stuff works against some defenses, but I think, again, if you're going to be in a shootout, those kinds of looks are going to be, you're going to have to mix in the shot plays. And we've seen them try it against Dallas. We saw them, drop Jalen Hurts back on 3- and 5-step drops and really try to, drive the ball down the field. And they struggled. That was probably their worst game. So I think you're going to see that again this game. I think you're going to see him attack downfield. I think you're going to have to see him be patient in the pocket and let routes develop, and again, throw with anticipation. So I think that that's going to be a big part of the game, is whether or not he has success with those throws.
And let's be fair to Hurts. He needs a lot more out of guys like Jalen Reagor. Got a truck coming.
That's Vita Vea.
Wow.
That's Vita Vea lined up over Jason Kelce. Yeah.
They're trucking them in.
Yeah.
We're going to need a lot more they're going to need to see a lot more from a guy like Jalen Reagor. Devontae Smith is an incredible talent. He's going to be a great wide receiver in this league for a long time. He's been great already. But defenses know right now that he's the guy that's their route runner. He's the guy that they're emphasizing in this offense. They need a guy like Jalen Reagor to work himself open down the field and give Jalen Hurts, a target. And I'm not sure that we saw that in Carolina. I don't know where he was in Carolina. Taking kickoffs out of the end zone 5 yards deep, missing blocking assignments, running routes that you or I looked like we were going for a walk in the park the way he runs his routes. We need to see that. But look, one question you have to consider is Nick Sirianni calling an offense out of necessity rather than, does he really want to be running this high school offense, or is he worried about Jalen Hurts' ability to step back, plant his foot, and drive a ball, into his own defense? And we need to see that out of Hurts. That's the biggest thing I think we need to see the rest of this year is see that he can make. You hear, when guys come out in the draft that he can make all the throws. Jalen Hurts can't make all the throws, or he needs to be able to show us that he can make all the throws, and there's a reason why that's a valuable thing.
So I got two things for you right there. So I completely agree with you. This offense can be a little confusing at times because it's so quarterback centric. You know, the RPO game, you know, the screen game, they don't run the ball very often. They want everything to run through Hurts. Even on a run play, Jalen Hurts can keep it and tuck it out and run the other way with it. So I think this is a really quarterback centric offense, but at the same time, they don't trust him all the way. They don't open up the playbook for him. So it's a really interesting contrast where everything runs through him, but not everything gets run for him.
I agree, EJ. In fact, I think Jalen Reagor and the wide receiving core are under a huge microscope tonight as they attempt to keep pace in what could be a track meet with Tom Brady. When you look at this Bucs depth chart at wide receiver, when you see Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, Antonio Brown, any one of those guys would have been the best wide receiver that the Eagles have had
by far
on their depth chart in the last 5 years, and they're all there. Dallas Goedert will miss the game tonight with a COVID.
He's got coronavirus. He was placed on the COVID list on Tuesday. You have to have two tests 24 hours apart, two negative tests, and you have to be asymptomatic. There was just no chance he was going to play, so they're without him.
Zach Ertz, unfortunately, I believe still technically has a pulse, but his spirit has definitely left his body. Just not able to do much of anything anymore, which is very sad to watch.
It's brutal.
It is, but I mean, there's a reason why nobody wanted to trade anything for him. He's not going to. I don't think you can rely on him to give Jalen Hurts what he needs to keep pace with this Bucs defense, with this Bucs offense. But it's so jarring looking at what the Bucs have at Tom Brady's disposal versus what the Eagles have at Jalen Hurts' disposal. And you need a guy like Reagor, who you drafted in the first round, who you talked up all training camp, who allegedly was poised for a breakout bounce-back year. You need a guy like that to just shake off whatever has been troubling him through these first 5 weeks and contribute to this team. He just is not. He was one of the worst players on the field in Carolina, at least from my.
No, I completely agree. Yeah. I sort of go the other way, though. I sort of think he's going to be on the field, and you're right, he's got to make plays. But the way I think you can kind of get away from, getting killed by the mistakes he makes is call more plays for Quez Watkins. Again, like coaches will have their play sheets. They got number 6 plays. They got number 16. They got number 18. I think they need to be calling more of those number 16 plays. I think Quez Watkins he's probably their second most explosive receiver. We talked earlier about explosive plays, the importance of them. I think that, incorporating a guy like Quez Watkins more in the game plan can add those explosive plays. He brings that explosive element to the offense. Defenses have to know where he is. When he goes across the formation, they have to account for him because his speed is real, and he's proven it both in the preseason and during the regular season so far. So I agree with you. Reagor he was one of the worst players on the field. I mean, turning bad kickoff returns, poor routes, missed blocks. He just needs to get better at a lot of different things. But I do think that the Watkins aspect is there too.
The problem is I don't necessarily buy this notion that Nick Sirianni and this new coaching staff has any sort of loyalty towards Jalen Reagor. I mean, they're rational people. They're looking out for their own self-interest, and there's a reason why Jalen Reagor is out there, taking snaps on the outside, versus Quez Watkins. Why is that? Look, we've seen Quez Watkins run. We know he has game-breaking speed. We know, he has a 40-yard catch in 3 out of 5 games. But what can he do besides that vertical route, besides that bubble screen action? And the answer might be not much. I mean, the guy's, a 6th-round pick?
Yeah.
There's a reason why he was a 6th-round pick, despite having this game-breaking speed. Look, football coaches are not in the business of ignoring what benefits them.
Yeah.
And I think that the fact that we have not seen more Quez Watkins is more an indication that this wide receiving core is still where it has been the last 2 or 3 years. Devontae Smith's going to be a great player. He's been a great player already, but he's the one NFL route runner in this wide receiving core, and you need more than that. Again, the Bucs have 3. Yeah. 3 elite level route runners. And the Eagles, I would argue Devontae Smith is elite level, but that's it. They've got 2 replacement level wide receivers that they're trying to mix in there. And I think it comes back to the age-old question with this team is, look, Sirianni, he's had some faults. Jalen Hurts has had some faults. But at some point, this roster needs to start to reflect an actual NFL roster. And the fact that they did not bring in a veteran wide receiver, there were guys out there, Marvin Jones, Jameson Crowder could have been had, I'm sure. you can look at a million different receivers that came into places and are making contributions. And the fact that they don't have another option and they put all of their eggs in the Rager Watkins basket, just like
doesn't sit well.
It doesn't.
Yeah.
I don't understand. Put it that way.
I mean, they talked a lot during training camp about the importance of veteran presence in different parts of the different position groups. Mm-hmm. Offensive linemen have Jason Kelsey, Lane Johnson, Brandon Brooks. Mm-hmm. That's that veteran presence that brings the young guys along. Quarterback, Joe Flacco, right. Joe Flacco's presence. They talk about that all the time. And you're right, there's nothing like that in the wide receiver room. And I think you do see a reflection of that in the way that the season has unfolded. I think they've had, 4 touchdowns off the board because of wide receiver penalties. Mm-hmm. These illegal touching penalties where they step out of bounds or offensive pass interference on these pick plays. That's experience. I mean, you mentioned Zach Ertz being lifeless right now a little bit, but in the season opener, he had the pick play that freed up Devontae Smith for the first touchdown of the season. That's a veteran move.
Right.
And there's nobody like that in the wide receiver room.
Yep.
But anyway, let's pivot to the other side of the ball. A guy that I'm really looking forward to seeing in this game and who I think the Eagles are going to need a lot out of is Javon Hargrave. Mm-hmm. We talked earlier about Tom Brady, and you're not going to surprise him. He's going to know what you're in. He's going to know where to go with the ball, and he's going to put the ball precisely where it needs to be. But the only way that you're really going to affect him, the way that you're going to keep yourself in the game, is with pressure. And a guy like Brady, he can step up in the pocket. One of the things that makes him as special as he is his ability to move in the pocket. But if you can't move when there's a guy in your lap. You can't move when there's interior pressure. That's why the Eagles built their defensive line the way it's built. They have Javon Hargrave and Fletcher Cox, 2 big money defensive tackles, and they have those guys because they're betting on interior pressure changing games. So in the games they've won, the pressure has been there. In the games they've lost, it hasn't been there. Against a guy like Mahomes, they didn't get to him enough. And I think if the Eagles are going to have a chance defensively, a guy like Javon Hargrave, who's I think he's at 5.5 sacks. He's had a great season. I think he's going to have to continue to dominate games. And a guy like Fletcher Cox, if the attention shifts to Hargrave, is going to have to be able to step up the way that he did against Carolina. He struggled at the beginning of the year, but against Carolina he looked better. They're going to need both of those guys, but particularly Hargrave, because I think he gets more of the one-on-one matchups. They're going to need both of those guys to have a real impact and make Tom Brady uncomfortable.
And if you're looking for a reason for optimism, at least relatively speaking, in this game, the fact that this linebacking core is probably going to be tested as less as it has been all season, that's a feather in the Eagles' cap, such as it is. Rob Gronkowski will not be playing today. Cameron Brate is kind of a one-dimensional tight end. O.J. Howard, I don't know how many snaps he's getting these days, but Ronald Jones and Leonard Fournette are not guys that can really get to the edge the way your Ezekiel Elliott's, Tony Pollard's, CEH's, Chuba Hubbard.
Even Chuba Hubbard made the Eagles run defense.
They really struggled to set the edge last week in the first half, and that was one of the big factors behind that 15-3 or whatever it was deficit that they took in the halftime.
I mean, it turned the game into a rock fight, right? I mean, Chuba Hubbard had a quiet 100-plus yard game, and he seems like a decent player, but he's not one of the premier running backs in the league. I think this Jonathan Gannon defense, you have a lot of too high safety. You're kind of lighter boxes, and they're kind of daring teams to run. Analytically, it makes sense to say, you'll have more explosive pass plays than you will run plays.
Right.
But the math doesn't work when you're giving up 8 or 9 yards a carry like they have at some points this season. So I think you're right. The run fits are going to be really important. But the Buccaneers are probably going to, they're going to look at the Eagles' defensive system, and they're still going to say, we're throwing the ball. We got Tom Brady. We got the greatest quarterback of all time. We're still throwing the ball.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I'm taking the Bucs tonight. But I think that at the very least, I think strength against strength works better in the Eagles' favor than it did against Dallas, than it did against the Chiefs. Steven Nelson's big-bodied kind of cornerback. Mike, I would assume that if you're going to follow Slay with anybody, put him on Godwin or Brown.
I feel like the Godwin-Slay matchup is probably a little better. I mean, Slay, in his history with the Eagles at least, he does better with shifty guys,
Whereas Nelson,
route runners.
We saw last week he can struggle in space against guys who can kind of get in and out of their breaks. And Evan's more of a big-bodied guy, and I think he's a guy that Steven Nelson can match up a little bit.
Those are the guys that give Slay problems too. You look at DK Metcalf's matchups with Slay; he doesn't do well with those big, strong guys who can out-physical him. I think so. Yeah.
So anyway, that brings us to the matchup. we haven't even talked about this off air, but one of the matchups to watch might be Avonte Maddox versus Antonio Brown.
Yeah. Good luck.
Credit to Antonio Brown. He looked like he was running in sand last year when he came back, but through 5 games this year, I think he's got 20 catches for 350 some yards.
Yeah.
He's coming off a 7-catch, 124-yard outing against I forget who they even played, the Dolphins.
Dolphins, yeah, 5 touchdown game for Brady.
That's going to be, that might be that, and the safety game struggled a little bit last week. I think the Antonio Brown matchup in the slot with Avonte and some of those safeties is going to be an interesting one to watch.
Yeah, I mean, they just have so many good receivers who are going to be able to figure out soft spots and zones, where to sit down. I mean, it's really remarkable how the disparity in talent between the Tampa Bay receivers and the Eagles receivers. So we have a couple of reader questions we wanted to get to here, and you guys can feel free to send these in at Inquirer.com/Gameday Central, or you can send them to us on Twitter if you want. So the first one comes from TJ.
You can just ball them up in a piece of paper and
throw them
past us and throw it to us, and we'll read them too.
So the first one comes from TJ Mont on Twitter. His Twitter handle is Eyes on the Prize, I guess we'll call it.
He doesn't have an E in there. It's more like Eyes on the Priz.
Some editorialization there.
Right.
So why is J.J. Arcega-Whiteside still on the roster? He had 4 receptions all of last season and 0 this year. Enough with this guy.
Well, because who are you going to? You're not just going to cut someone just to cut somebody. I mean, you got to have someone. You have to have a better option. And the better question is the one that we asked, 5 minutes ago. Why isn't there a better option?
Yeah.
I think that's been the question with this Eagles wide receiving core going back to Jordan Matthews. Why is Jordan Matthews your number 1 wide receiver?
Yeah.
I think that's the question.
The reason that there's not a better option is because they drafted him instead of DK Metcalf.
Yeah, I mean, we could unpack that. We could do an Instagram live for 24 hours on that.
Maybe in the off season we have a little bit more time, right? Yeah. So the next one comes from, I think it's I don't have the guy's name here. I think it might be Art Vandelay or something like that. I thought it was a burner account, so I didn't.
Probably.
I didn't have it in there.
It was actually me.
He asked, what are the most favorable matchups for the Eagles on both offensive and the defensive side against Tampa? So we kind of went through this, but I would say one of the most favorable matchups that I see coming in is the Eagles' interior defensive line against the Bucs' offensive line. Otherwise, I don't really think there's a lot of good defensive matchups for the Eagles right now.
No, and I think in these Thursday night games, if you're looking for units that have the advantage, I think the offensive lines might have the most disadvantage, and that could be. You're talking about. You played offensive line, correct?
I did, yeah.
You know what it's like.
I was a quarterback my freshman year, but then my dad says I ate my way out of the position.
Well, your dad's partially responsible for that.
Yeah, right.
But you look much better as an offensive lineman. Anyway.
Yeah, I appreciate that, yeah.
You would be like Jared Lorenzen back there.
Yeah, I know Jamarcus Russell was my guy.
Yeah. Yeah, so what was the question anyway? I got completely distracted.
Visualizing me dropping back and throwing deep passes. I wasn't very good. So what are the most favorable matchups? How about you take the offensive matchups? Maybe a favorable offensive matchup for the Eagles.
I'll be honest with you.
You don't see one?
I don't know that I see one.
Yeah.
Look, I think Devontae Smith matches up against anybody who's going to be covering him.
Yeah.
So we'll say that.
Buccaneers are banged up at corner too.
They're banged up at corner.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, I've been giving Nick Sirianni a pass for much of this season just because I'm not sure that we're adequately appraising the talent level on this Eagles team. We talk about the wide receivers. How do you not have a running back that can hit a hole and plant a foot and cut?
Yeah.
Miles Sanders, look, good draft pick. They've gotten some value out of it, I guess, but he's doing the same things he did 3 years ago, running out of bounds twice, bouncing everything to the outside.
If anything, he's regressed. He hasn't caught the ball very well recently.
Right.
Yeah.
No, that's another. They brought Jordan Howard in, presumably to be that guy, but he's Jordan Howard, and you're kind of getting what you pay for out of that. And I don't see a whole lot of skill position matchups where the Eagles have a ton of stuff in their favor.
I'll give you one that I think is a little less favorable for the Eagles is Vita Vea and Jason Kelce.
Right.
Jason Kelce's a great center. He's one of the best centers of his era. Athletic, has really almost changed the way the position is played. Has made room for undersized guys. But the one area that he can struggle in is with guys lined up right over his head and big, strong, powerful guys like Vita Vea. Vita Vea is 6'4", 350 pounds. He's got that old school look. He doesn't have the gloves on out there, and he just moves guys. And he doesn't have the sack production this year. He doesn't have a lot of stats to show for what he's done, but he impacts games. And I think the matchup there is one that the Eagles are going to have to be careful with. This is a banged up offensive line. They've got inexperienced players at left guard and right guard. You can even stretch that out to left tackle this week. And I think Vita Vea and Jason Kelce, if there's a matchup that's going to give Jason Kelce trouble, it's a guy like Vita Vea.
So matchup-wise, I think Jalen Hurts presents matchup problems for any defense, and I think that Nick Sirianni needs to, take advantage of that more than he has. We saw that, again, down the stretch against Carolina. We saw Nick Sirianni go with the quarterback keeper game. We saw him go with the quarterback power game. We saw him go with the read option game. Don't limit Jalen Hurts' scrambling ability to scrambling. Call some design runs. Put him out there on an island. Let him make people miss. Let him get to the edge. Look, he's not only your best quarterback.
He's your best runner.
He's probably your best runner.
I don't even think there's a probably in there. I completely agree with you.
Like if he were a running back, he might be the best running back in this Eagles backfield. I think we're reaching the stage of the season where Nick Sirianni needs to decide, does he want to put his best offense out on the field? And if he does, that offense involves letting Jalen Hurts cook.
Let Jalen Hurts cook.
Jalen Hurts cook.
Uh-oh. That's going to be trending on Twitter. Yeah. So speaking of running the ball, that's our final question here is, could we actually run the ball at least and try a little ball control to keep it away from the GOAT?
You got to be able to run the ball.
Yeah.
Now, again, they're averaging 5 yards a carry, but it's this zone read running game that really is Miles Sanders only. He's kind of a one-trick pony. Look, I would love to see them, single back, under center, hit the hole, just get downhill. Throw something different out there. Look, the Panthers did it. They lined up in the eye probably 10, 15 times to let Chuba Hubbard kind of do his thing. But, it's never been an Eagles thing. It's never been an organizational philosophy. But, yes, I would love to see them do it. I just don't know that they're built to do it,
Well, maybe maybe I'll sound like I'm drinking the Kool-Aid a little bit here with the forward thinkers in the NFL, but I disagree with the notion that they don't run the ball enough. That is, we can get that out of the way. But, the notion that they're going to limit possessions for the Buccaneers by running the ball more, it's kind of fantasy. When they played the Chiefs, there was a lot of talk about control the ball, try to keep the ball out of Patrick Mahomes' hands. And I would say actually, the way that you beat those teams isn't by running the ball. Because, what are you going to do? You're going to take one possession away from a team like that? So instead, they have to be aggressive. Be aggressive on fourth downs. Be aggressive in the goal line. Don't settle for field goals. So I would say that, Nick Sirianni, the way that he calls games does make me a little bit more in the old school, we need to run the ball. We need to see what they look like. You hear that all week. And I do agree that, they don't run the ball enough. But I don't think running the ball for this team is necessary because they need to control possession. I think it's more about, Brandon Staley talked about this a couple of weeks ago, the physicality that comes with it, the way that it sets up other things, the way that a defense has to play you if they have to respect the run.
Right.
And they do. They just never run the ball. So I do think that that's something that, we're eventually going to have to see them do it. It's kind of like styles make fights. You have to be able to do different things in the league, and you can't run an offense without ever running. You know? So
yeah, and Joe Banner bangs this drum all the time, and I agree with Joe.
Yeah.
Theoretically, I agree. I'm on the progressive page, but at some point, when you're playing, for instance, if your opponent has no linebackers, the Eagles have no linebackers, when they have an edge rusher like Brandon Graham out, you do what you got to do, and you run the ball, and you attack them where they're weakest. And you saw Matt Rule do it. Matt Rule's not a guy who's going to be a slave to orthodoxy. He's going to put you in a position where you're going to do the best to expose the opponent, and that's what he did against the Eagles, and that involves running the ball. And at some point, especially when you have an unproven quarterback like Jalen Hurts, running the ball is something that you need to find a way to do. Again, not because of the clock, not because of possessions, but because it's what makes for the best strategy to beat a team.
Well, I think it's about time we get out of here before this place gets crowded with a bunch of unruly Eagles fans. Really quick, what's your prediction?
My prediction, I'm going to say 27-17.
I don't remember what score I wrote, but I think it was around there.
Okay.
And yeah, I think the Eagles probably lose by a possession or two, maybe 10 points. I just don't think they have the horses in this type of game. So.
But we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. Well, Thank you for tuning in to Eagles Game Day Central presented by Xfinity. Be sure to stick around on Inquirer.com/Gameday Central to follow along with all game-related news and post your comments and questions. And don't forget to join us next Sunday on October 24th for the Eagles matchup with the Raiders. We'll be coming to you around 2:30 Eastern Time.
Thanks.
Thank you.